Hi everyone, my name is Katy and thank you for joining me for another video. Today we are finally finishing up my 2024 reading journal, so let's get started. So I'm flipping forward to my Zodiac Favorites spread and filling in the books for Sagittarius and Capricorn, and they were Wisteria and Curious Tides. In today's video, we'll be focusing on all of my November and December books. Then I'm flipping to my rereads and filling in one book there, as well as one book from my physical TBR. And in my book bingo, I crossed off 3 different boxes, so a pink cover, finishing a series, and a book with a magic school setting. And then I'm flipping forward to my yearly stats page. So in November, I read 3 books, 2 were physical, 1 ebook, and no audiobooks. And then in December, I read 4 books, 2 physical, 1 ebook, and 1 audiobook. And then flipping forward again to my year of adventure page. And my November prompt was a book from a favorite author, and I reread Flamefall by Rosaria Munda. And then the final book for December was a heist book, or a book with a heist, and I read Curious Tides, which does have a heist in it. And then we're flipping toward the back of my journal to this second bookshelf spread that I made and filling in the star ratings for all of the books that I read during these 2 months. And I obviously didn't fill up this whole spread. I have about 10 remaining books left on that bottom shelf, but totally happy with the amount of books that I did end up reading in 2024. And I will be doing a full flip through video pretty soon where you'll be able to see all of the different pages and spreads that I did throughout the whole year. And then I'm flipping forward to my November cover page and filling in the stats there. And I am recovering from having a cold, so I apologize if you can hear that in my voice. I'm mostly better now, but still a little bit of a runny nose. I feel like everybody's getting sick, so definitely hope you're all staying safe and healthy and all that. So then we're flipping forward to my book reviews. So like I said, I reread Flamefall, which is the second book in the Aurelian cycle and one of my favorite books, like my favorite series. And this second book really gets into more of the revolutionary politics and propaganda and the effects of a revolution on a society, and I love it. And then I read Brewed in Magic, which is the second book in the Falling for Fable series, which is just a bunch of little cozy fantasy romance standalones, and they are super cute and just like a good palate cleanser. I really have enjoyed the series so far. And then I read Wisteria, which is the 3rd Belladonna book, and I think it was my least favorite of the 3, but I still really enjoyed it. And I did do a spread for all 3 of these books. So the first page that I'm doing here is for Flamefall, and I'm using a combination of different bluish dragon washi tapes, as well as this sticker, which is definitely supposed to be from Fourth Wing, but it looked like a really cool dragon, so I used it here anyways. And I really like how the bluish navy tones all work together in this spread and how they complement the cover of the book. I don't always try to plan my spreads around complementing the book cover, but it all just really worked for this one, so I was happy to do that. And I also added some additional little stickers that are also definitely supposed to be for Fourth Wing, but there's not a lot of Aurelian Cycle fan art or stickers or anything out there, so you gotta make do with what you got. And a lot of the Fourth Wing stuff could work for other dragon warrior kind of books, so it is what it is. So, like I said, Flamefall is the second book in this series, so I can't talk too much about the specifics of the plot, but we ended the first book with some pretty wild stuff happening, and this book picks up right after, and our characters are thrown into the responsibilities and the realities of their actions in the first book. And this series is based on Plato's Republic mixed with dragons, basically. And it shows the reality of what happens after a revolution, especially when that revolution isn't necessarily the most just of systems. And our characters kind of struggle with that and figuring out the kind of society that they want to fight for and where their loyalties lie. Our main characters, Annie and Lee, both knew each other growing up but had a very different backstory. Lee is kind of an Anastasia type character. His family used to be the Dragon Lords in power, but on the bloody revolutionary day, all of his family was killed, and he was snuck away, I guess, and raised under an alias, and nobody knows who he is. And then Annie grew up basically like a peasant farmer, and the Dragon Lords killed her family. And the two of them met in an orphanage and are best friends. And now in the first book, they are training to become guardians of the new revolutionary society. And like I said, that society is based on Plato's Republic, so people test into different levels of society based on merit, kind of, instead of being born into your class. And while that might sound better, it brings its own challenges with it and its own class disparity and injustices and all of that. And there's always people who are left out and left behind. And like I said, our characters have to make a lot of decisions on what they want to support. And it's very politics forward, and I just love that about this series. And in the second book, we also get to see more of the rebels who are against this new government, and we see how propaganda is used to support a regime, and our characters make their decisions on if they want to try to better the system from the inside or side with the rebels and be on the outside. We also get another point of view, and this character is in a different area, I'll say. And he brings a lot of depth to the world because his viewpoint is outside of Callipolis, which is like the main place where the first book takes place and really the whole series takes place. But he is experiencing what life under the Dragon Lord rulers is like, and we get to see that from his point of view. And don't worry, they all come together in the third book. I honestly kind of want to reread the first and second book again, just because something happens in the third book that makes me very emotional and I'm scared to reread it. It happens to my favorite character. Yeah. If you know, you know. So anyway, this is Flamefall. This is the Aurelian Cycle. I will scream it to the rooftops. If you like dragons, if you like antiquity, if you like political fantasy, definitely read this. It is YA, but I think it can appeal to so many people, and I personally absolutely love it. And the quote that I chose for this page is, "Anyone can start a fire. The problem is what happens after." And that's kind of what our characters are going through in this book. And then flipping forward, we are going to do the spread for Brewed in Magic. And this comes after Forged in Magic, and it is a standalone, but they are interconnected. So the main character of this book was shown in the first book, and she's related to one of the main characters in the first book. So we're following the elf Lilia, and they're on this magical island where there's not supposed to be like any harm to the people who live there and call it home, because the magic of the island takes care of its people. And this elf is the owner of a traveling tavern, and her whole adult life, she has been on the road, and she loves being on the road and traveling, seeing the whole island and visiting the different communities and setting up her tavern and entertaining people. And she also, of course, makes ale. So she's like a brewmaster. And we start the book with her on her way to a Yule festival, and her wheel of her tavern gets stuck. And our dude in the book, he comes by and helps her get her wheel unstuck. So it's kind of like the medieval fantasy version of like a guy helping you with your tire or something. So that was just a fun start to the book. And, you know, he's kind of mysterious. You don't know a lot about him, but it's very obvious that he's going to be the dude main character. So the two of them share a campfire for the night and cozy up a little bit. But he leaves before she wakes up in the morning. So she continues down her way to the Yule Festival, and of course, once she gets there, she finds out that someone has taken her usual spot for her tavern, and it ends up to be that guy she met on the road. So her rival, Brewmaster, he is a fire demon, and he also makes really bad ale, which is kind of funny, but we later find out that he's in this whole situation not because he wants to be a D-bag to her or anything. He is trying to make some money to repay his late brother's debts. The two of them have their bickering rivalry, but both of their ale, all of their inventory, ends up getting stolen, and so does all of the food for the Yule Festival. And everybody's freaking out, and the two of them have to team up to try to find their ale, try to find the food, because you can't have a festival without alcohol and food, and they need to team up to try to save the day, save Yule. And of course, because it's a fantasy romance book, as they are trying to figure it out and going on their little adventures, they learn more about each other, soften towards each other. We learn more about Lilia's want and fear of settling down because she's been so used to being on the road and being with her tavern. And we also learn more about the guy. His name is Ragnar. And I should mention, there are also dragons in this book. We met the dragons in the last book, and Lilia has not a pet dragon, but he's kind of like a dog, is his character. His name is Raker, and he follows her around in the tavern, but not everybody on the island is necessarily cool with dragons. So he stays hidden in the forest, and she's very protective of him and doesn't want, people to start a riot because they saw a dragon or anything. And they're not necessarily a huge part of the book. They're more in the background, at least so far. But I always, of course, love a little bit of dragons in my books. And overall, this one I didn't like as much as the first one, but I still enjoyed it. Like I said, it just has that cozy fantasy romance, super quick read, and it's just a lot of fun. So I do recommend if you like that kind of vibe. I did have a little bit of a problem with like the last quarter of the book, mostly related to finding out who the actual person who like stole the stuff and ruined the Yule Festival was, because that person kind of came out of nowhere. Like, you spent too much time with the red herring, and that meant that when you actually got to who the bad guy was, it just kind of felt like, oh, okay, sure, why not? So I didn't feel like there was enough build-up there, and it just kind of felt too convenient. I still enjoyed it, and I will continue on in the series. I do think it's really interesting, the magic of the island, and we got to learn a little bit more about that in this book thanks to some of the side characters, and I really enjoyed the side characters in both of the books that I've read by this author so far. So the quote that I used for this spread is, "Silence was sometimes the best comfort one could give," and I just liked the message of that quote for real life, but then also the characters in that scene. And this whole spread I thought turned out really cute. I had to use these Marigona Silly art stickers. These are like little bakery witches with dragons. So like the dragons run the bakery with them. And this whole launch that she did was so cute, but I haven't had a chance to use any of them yet. And I thought it kind of fit with the vibe of Yule and then having the dragons there as well. And all of the food and like breads and everything just looks so cute and cozy, and it really fit with the vibe. I do wish there was like ale somewhere in the spread or beer or something, but I don't have any stickers like that, so that's okay. The washi tape that I used is one of my favorites. It's this really pretty pink color with little moons and dragons and books, so I thought that was perfect as well. And just overall, I really loved the spread. I had a fun time with the book, and definitely recommend if you enjoy books like this. But if you don't like cozy and light-hearted stuff, don't even try it, because you won't like it. So the next spread that I did in my journal was for Wisteria, and like I said, this is the third book and final book in the Belladonna series, although she did just announce that she's going to do a holiday novella, so we'll see how that goes. But Wisteria picks up right after the end of the second book, which was called Foxglove, and this book follows the second couple mostly, which is Blythe and Fate. And stuff happens at the end of the second book, which has brought these two together, and it's like a forced proximity kind of situation. And there's magic involved, tying them together that they can't escape. And Blythe is kind of navigating that. She definitely has like a enemies to lovers kind of thing going on. And Fate, I described him in my last video that he kind of has like a Jax vibe to him, in my opinion. Like, he's very charming and witty, but also like likes to play games, and he doesn't, take crap from anybody. So I did enjoy him as a character, and I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this book without giving too many spoilers. But part of this book that I really enjoyed was Fate softening towards Blythe and him doing things for her. Specifically, one thing that happens is she accidentally invites her father to come visit them, and they, in reality, live in this like cold manor, just like old, and nobody's lived there, and it's like not appealing, not somewhere where a father would want his daughter to be living. So what Fate does is he enchants not only the manor, but like the whole city around them and all of the people and his staff and everything to be this wintry wonderland. And the atmosphere in that writing and just like the vibes and the descriptions of all of the wintry stuff. And I read this during winter, and it's still winter, and I live in the northern Midwest, so I'm very used to snow and winter and all of those things, and I really love the aesthetics of winter. So I thought that part was just so fun, and Fate has a lot of attention to detail in his enchantment, and it kind of shows how much he cares. So all that said, I did enjoy it. I was disappointed that my favorite characters, which is the main couple, Signa and Death, they're kind of on the back burner, and I missed them. Although I do really appreciate the relationship between Signa and Blythe, and I liked seeing that in this book. I just really like the character of Death, and he's really interesting to me, and like the conversations that he makes me think about, I really enjoy, because I like that macabre afterlife stuff. So I did miss him, but we do get some of him throughout, and especially toward the end. The thing that I really didn't care for as much was there is a character introduced in this book that has a really big role to play, especially towards the end of the book. But she's not introduced until so late in the series that like the impact of her story and her impact on like the ending just didn't hit. And I feel like if her character would have been introduced in the first book and then like shown a little bit in the second book and then really expanded on in this book, and she could have done all the same things that she did in this book, I feel like that would have worked better, because it just felt kind of like shoehorned in there. So I was a little bit disappointed in all of that. I also felt like just kind of the last 25% of the book felt a little bit chaotic. Like a lot was happening. Some of the decisions that the characters made, I didn't think really fit with their characterization, but I understood why the author chose to do that, because it was quite like impactful and emotional and tugged on the heartstrings, that is for sure. So overall, I thought this series was pretty enjoyable. I really loved the first book especially. So let's talk about the spread. I am in love with this spread. I think it is so pretty. The quote that I chose was, "Not everyone gets to grow old. Not everyone gets to love or be loved in return. Sometimes the world is cruel," and that is a good quote to represent this final installment of the series. And the ephemera that I'm using for this spread just works together so well, in my opinion. I absolutely love it. So I'm using that scalloped green washi tape from Notebook Therapy, and I paired it with that green botanical thicker washi tape, also from Notebook Therapy, that I haven't had a chance to use yet, but I think it looks so good. It definitely works with the vibe of the series. And then I paired those with these Maragona Sully art stickers that are like this winter, bookish, academia kind of vibe. And I think they are so pretty. The blues and greens and browns really work with the washi tapes that I chose. And the girl in the sticker also has blonde hair, which is the color that Blythe's hair is, so I felt like that worked well too. And I am really happy with how it turned out, and I'm happy that it was for a book that I really like as well. So that was it for my November spreads, and now we are doing my December cover page. And I'm using one of my favorite washi tapes by Maragona Suli, and they are these winter kitties. I am a proud cat mom, so I love cats, and I just think these are adorable and perfect for December. And then I'm just penning in all of the details on that cover page. So my title of December books, and then my little shelf, and my stats section. And in December, I read 4 books. None of them were like absolute hits for me, but 2 of them, I guess, kind of got there. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I ended up decorating this page with matching like blue and pink stickers from Maragona Suli Art. And then I put one of the witchy stickers on top of that. And she has a snow cloud in her witch's hat, which is absolutely adorable. And then I also used a little book sticker, a moon potion sticker, and then I accented all of those with some snowflakes, a poinsettia, these little like hollyberry bushes, and leaves and all the usuals, and I think it turned out really cute. So once that is done, I'm flipping to my book reviews. And like I said, I read 4 books this month, which left me with 2 little spaces for quotes. So I added some more of those kitty washi tapes to each of those quote spaces. And then I worked on the book reviews. So the first book that I read was Dungeons and Drama. And this was a YA contemporary romance. And it's about a musical theater nerd whose dad owns a nerd store. She has to fake date one of his employees, who is also one of her school classmates. And she joins his D&D campaign. And it was really cute. I definitely would have loved it when I was younger, but I still enjoyed it. Then I read Spectacular, which was the holiday novella for the Caraval series, and I really wanted to love this, but it just kind of fell flat for me. This suffered from Stephanie Garber really focusing on Tella instead of Scarlet, and I prefer Scarlet as a character. And unfortunately, I feel like she just wants Scarlett Julian fans to starve because we were not fed with this novella. So that was just disappointing. Also, the story was kind of weird. But that being said, the illustrations throughout the book are absolutely adorable. The world is so whimsical and fun. But yeah, the story was just kind of odd. Then I listened to Two Can Play, which is by Allie Hazelwood, and I believe this only came out as an audiobook, which is interesting. But this is a rival video game developer romance, which sounded fun, and it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It was very Allie Hazelwood vibes, if you know what that means. My biggest gripe with it was that the main guy character, he doesn't like the Persona video games, and those are like my favorite games. So I personally took that as a red flag for him and for the whole book. So that definitely influenced my rating, be warned. And then I read Curious Tides, which is a YA fantasy that takes place at a magical school. It was definitely kind of trying to give dark academia vibes, and I think it kind of did, but I'll talk about it because I did a whole spread for it. I enjoyed it. Some of the stuff was confusing, but the writing itself was absolutely beautiful, and the magic was interesting, and some of the themes were really interesting, so I would say I did enjoy it. Now onto the quotes. So I'm just decorating with some books and snowflakes, that kind of stuff. And the first quote that I did was from Curious Tides, and that was, "Naturally, nothing contented him more than libraries." I always like to include quotes about books in these sections, and a lot of Curious Tides takes place in a library, or specifically one character kind of pores over this legend and he's like reading about it. So that was a perfect quote to include here. And then the second quote that I used was from Spectacular, and that was, "People need holidays, they need happiness, they need joy, and they need reasons to give and to love." And I picked this because it was December, and obviously the giving holidays are in December, and I thought it was perfect to use for that. So then, like I said, I'm doing a spread for Curious Tides, and this book had a lot to do, like I said, with legends, and specifically this one book legend. And so I wanted to incorporate some kind of book washi tape. So I used this absolutely beautiful kind of purpley one with rose gold foiling from Bloomsicle. And I love that washi tape so much, so I was really excited to use it. And I paired it with this celestial pink washi tape from Notebook Therapy. And the magic system in this book is ruled by tides and the moon. And the different like houses of magic are named after different phases of the moon. So I thought kind of that celestial vibe worked really well. And I paired it with these Moon Witch stickers from Maragona Sully Art. So we've got the witch with her kitty on the broomstick, which is absolutely adorable. And then I also have the different moons, the one with the owl, the one in the clouds, the one with the kitties, and then the little cloud potion. And I really, really love how it all came together and all really worked for me, and how it complemented the vibes and the themes of the book. However, I will say the book is quite a bit darker than these pastel colors would let on, because it starts out with a tragedy. We're at this magical school, and like I said, people have different kinds of magic that are split into different houses, and we start out hearing about this kind of secret society ritual gone wrong, and several students, like 7 or something, all disappeared and potentially died one night during this ritual. And we don't know too much about it, but we do know that this character named Romy died that night. And we have a dual POV situation going on. And our first POV is Emery, and she was Romy's best friend. And then we have Baz, who is Romy's brother. And so they talk a lot about Romy, but we haven't met that character. That character is gone. She might be dead. She's disappeared. Something happened to her during this ritual, and we don't know what it is. But they talk about her and think about her all the time because she just is gone now. And it's very fresh. They're coming back to school after the tragedy, and there's like awkwardness between Emery and Baz because of Romy. And we get to learn that Emery had followed the group of students to that ritual. She wasn't a part of the secret society, but she followed them because she knew Romy was going. And so she followed them, and something happened that night that changed her magic. And now she's got a new kind of magic. And we also find out that in this world, there's certain kinds of magics that are discriminated against. People get sent away if they have that kind of magic. So when Romy comes back, she is trying to find out what happened to Romy. And the way that she tries to go about it is by learning more about the secret society. And she ends up meeting some characters who have dubious intent and motivations. And that is kind of her route. Baz is really obsessed with this legend of the drowned god, it's called. And he thinks that maybe there's something in this old legend that has to do with the disappearance of these students. And he really pores over this legend, and he's like in the library researching it, researching authors and people who are tied to this legend. And so his kind of route is looking into the legend. And eventually they do end up, working together and getting to know each other and kind of figuring out this tension that's between the two of them and where that comes from. And it was just interesting. It kept my interest. I think some of the pacing was odd. I thought Emery was odd, like her opinions about herself and her situation and Romy. She was just odd. So that was her. But I really enjoyed Baz as a character, and I really enjoyed his POV. And I was like, Emery, why don't you see in Baz what I see in him? Like, he's right there. Why are you not seeing it? But some of the plot points felt a bit garbled. We had some really great side characters, specifically Kai. Loved that character and really hope to see more of them in the second book. So I really enjoyed some aspects of it. Some of the stuff was predictable, specifically like the main person who betrays Emery. I saw it coming a mile away, but that's okay. And I also thought it was interesting that it's definitely trying to be like a dark academia vibe, but like they never went to class. And they did spend time like in the library, and the secret society is kind of working on their magic, and there's like one-on-one training in magic, but the actual like school academia vibe wasn't really there, aside from it taking place at a school. But maybe they just had really light class loads. I don't know, but that was one kind of weird thing about it. But the writing style was stunning. It was so stunning that while Emery was making all of these frustrating decisions, it was done so beautifully, and like I enjoyed reading about it because of how beautifully it was written. So I definitely appreciated that, and I am looking forward to reading the next book. I'm not entirely sure how many books there are going to be in this series. I think it's 3, maybe it's 2, but I will be reading the next book, and I will find out from there. I don't really see anybody talk about this book. I don't know anybody else who's read it, but I wanted to check it out because it had such a pretty cover, honestly, and the aspects of like a moon-based magic system and a secret society at a magical academy was really interesting to me. So overall, I'm happy that I read it, and I enjoyed it. And the quote that I chose was, "Justice and revenge are the same when you're willing to sacrifice all these lives for it." And without giving too many spoilers away, I thought that that was a good representation of what's going on with the secret society, which was one of the most interesting parts of the book for me. So yeah, that was Curious Tides. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I am really happy to be done with my monthly spreads for my 2024 journal, finally. And I am excited to be able to share a full flip through with you soon. So look forward to that. I am really excited. That should be coming very soon. And also look forward to my monthly spreads in my 2025 journal, which will also be coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave a like and a comment down below. And if you'd like to see more from me, please hit subscribe. I hope that you and yours are staying safe, happy, and healthy. And I will see you again next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.